Oh no, not that.
If you're into excitement and cartoons, you know that adrenaline has a surname, and it's Buttowski. That's the last name of the kid who's an expert in risky stunts, actually named Clarence Francis, but he calls himself Kick Buttowski, and he's gonna be the greatest suburban daredevil in history one day. But there are two problems in Kick's life, actually. First, his older brother Brad, who's always competing with Kick and trying to bring him down.
Hell, Brad. Hell, Brad.
And also, the city of Mellowbrook, the most peaceful city in the world, which frustrates Kick because he's always seeking incredible challenges to overcome. The problem is that in the process, he often ends up face-planting, rolling, and hurting himself really bad. But that's the risk the greatest suburban adventurer needs to take if he wants to be the greatest for real. And for inspiration, Kick looks up to the Pantheon, the 5 greatest stuntmen and adventurers that exist. But before we talk about them, we need to go back to the beginning, the origin of Kick's uncontrollable desire for excitement and danger. The story begins with Kick's grandfather, whose name was never revealed, known only as Grandpa Buttowski, and his family hails from the region of Russia and Georgia. Grandpa Buttowski is a grumpy and stern old man, but in the past, he was exactly like his grandson, not Brad, but Kick. He was simply obsessed with danger. Kick's grandpa was a newspaper delivery guy, and he was so skilled and efficient that he caught the attention of the army. For that reason, he was recruited to be a spy on a super secret and extremely dangerous mission.
We need you to head overseas and use your remarkable delivery skills to grab a package from a chemistry lab.
The mission's objective was to prevent the jaguar juice from falling into the hands of a bloodthirsty dictator in Tankinistan. This juice was actually a powerful rocket fuel. This stuff was made from cheetah gases. That's right, it was made from jaguar farts. After a confrontation with the dictator, Grandpa Buttowski managed to recover the fuel, and the USA won the war. And that's the origin of Kick's suburban daredevil DNA, directly from his grandpa, who was a hero in the war. But as Grandpa Buttowski became an adult, he had a son named Harold, who had a completely different personality, meaning he wasn't radical at all. But he grew up and married Honey, who identified with her father-in-law, Grandpa Buttowski, completely. She was a real adventurer, so much so that she was known as Honey Splash. Once, she broke records while jet skiing, with almost the entire city of Mellowbrook watching. She couldn't complete the course because she got hand cramps.
My tendinaceous ligamental flexor can't move!
Here's the kicker. Her family didn't know about her adventurous skills until Kick and his friend Gunther found the cassette tape with this part of Honey's story. But after that, she decided to retire from the adventure life and focus on her family, and she had 3 children. The first son, Brad Buttowski, the middle one, Clarence, our protagonist Kick, and the youngest daughter, Brianna Buttowski, who annoys and manipulates her brothers, is very spoiled, and participates in talent and beauty contests because she's inspired by an actress named Tina. Honey, Kick's mother, saw how the helmet inspired him to be more adventurous and had a complete uniform made for him that matched the helmet. Plus, he got a scooter, tricycle, bike, and skateboard. One of the show's trademarks is how Brad, Kick's older brother, constantly taunts him and hopes he always fails. When Kick was very young, the two were good friends and partners, but when Brad hit adolescence, they started fighting to the point of becoming true enemies. But when he was still a child, Kick met Gunther Magnusson, a cute and blonde kid, very kind. They became best friends, and from the clogs he wears, his dad's hat, and his mom's style, you can tell they were from the same place as the Vikings. And Gunther isn't just Kick's best friend, he's also his right-hand man, assistant, promoter, and responsible for everything related to preparing his stunts. He truly is a good friend. And now, Kick's story truly begins on the timeline where the first episode of the show starts. With Gunther's help, he's gonna face the Dead Man's Drop, where Kick's greatest idol had died years before. At least that's what folks thought until the episode where Kick goes into the cave to retrieve the lost skateboard that Dave's successor should inherit.
And only an equally skilled daredevil could inherit his most treasured board, until I found it yesterday.
But Dave had set up many traps in the area, making Kick and his inseparable friend Gunther's mission even more challenging. However, in the end, he does inherit the legendary skateboard. All this to discover that Dave wasn't actually dead, and that skeleton wasn't his. In reality, he just wanted to stop doing dangerous stuff and live his life in peace and tranquility. But besides Dave, Kick greatly admired the Pantheon with the 5 greatest adventurers of all time: Rock Callahan, Boom McCondor, Billy Stumps, Jock Wolder, and Dirt Bike Mike. Each of the 5 had their own insane acts, ranging from being in the Guinness World Records for breaking the most bones in a single fall to starring in ridiculously extreme movies. Kick's obsession with becoming the greatest suburban daredevil of all time led other people to become obsessed with him too, especially 2 people. His cousin Kyle, who's a real pain and has an unusual ability to make everything around him fall apart. But over time, Kick realizes that Kyle actually admires him, and that strange way that always messes up his rad stunts is because of his parents' absence at home. And of course, Kick's #1 fan, Wacky Jackie, as seen in the episode aptly named Obsession for Kick, who turns out to be totally crazy and infatuated with him. Jackie was a girl who had just moved near Kick, and she didn't really have many friends, which ended up making Kick sympathetic to her, even though her obsession with the suburban adventurer was a bit unhealthy. The problem is that Gunther, Kick's best friend, has a crush on the crazy girl who's obsessed with Kick, creating one of the most nonsensical love triangles in cartoons, which could actually turn into a kind of love square if we add one more character to the mix, Kendall, who is actually the complete opposite of Kick, always seeking excitement, while Kendall is much more rational and likes things to go to the right way, always. In fact, she's one of the few people who sometimes calls him Clarence instead of Kick. Their relationship is a bit confusing, but they kind of care for each other, and there's even some jealousy in a few episodes, like when she starts dating Ronaldo, a boy who was in love with her and didn't like Kick, just to make Buttowski upset. This means he really liked Kendall, and when an accident happens during the rehearsal of the play Romeo and Juliet being practiced at school, Ronaldo, who played the role of Romeo, gets hit and injured. To everyone's despair, Kick ends up having to take on the role, and Kendall was Juliet. And as much as Kendall wanted to kiss the urban adventurer, in the end, he purposely has an accident to avoid having to kiss Kendall for the 3rd time.
Oh no, not that.
Another recurring character who occasionally shows up to disrupt Kick's life is a boy named Gordy Gibble, who could be seen as a more animated version of Justin Bieber. He's always accompanied by 2 strong twin brothers who function more or less like lackeys, doing everything he asks and acting as bodyguards. They often help Gordy cheat, especially in competitions against Kick. But moving from a rival to a partner, we also have to talk about Wade, one of Gunther and Kick's friends who always helps the duo try to perform daring feats and stunts, supporting them in their totally insane tests and practices. He usually calls Kick Danger Guy, which, let's face it, is a name that suits Buttowski perfectly. The truth is that Kick Buttowski was a highly successful Disney series, but like other good series, it was canceled for no apparent reason, even though it had a strong audience. In fact, the last episode of the show left the ending wide open in case a continuation was produced. In this final episode, Kick dreams of himself as his favorite actor, Rock Callahan, in the future, helping to save the city from a villain who intends to blow it up, which turns out to be Brad, his troubled brother. But in the end, he wakes up and realizes it was a mix of a dream and a nightmare, reinforcing that rivalry between Brad and Kick would continue for a very, very long time. And, of course, many more stunts and dangers he would face alongside Gunther, Kyle, Jackie, and even the pantheon of 5 adventurers he admired so much. That was the story from start to finish of Kick Buttowski, the most radical suburban adventurer of all time. But this is just one of the adventures you can join today. Choose one of the options appearing on the screen and become a suburban adventurer just like Kick Buttowski. Thanks!